storage facility outdated and fired me. It was the only petroleum storage complex his fleet could use within 150 miles. I'm sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the third floor of Blackwell Petroleum's corporate building, and the kid across the table hasn't looked up from his laptop since I walked in. Austin Blackwell, 27 years old, Wharton MBA. He's wearing a slim-fit charcoal suit with no tie, his version of dressing down for an oil facility, and white sneakers that cost more than my monthly truck payment. They've never touched concrete. His hair is styled with some kind of product that's already losing the fight against Texas Gulf Coast humidity. And the whole room smells like expensive cologne layered over new carpet. Through the window behind him, I can see my facility, the real one. A crane moving a section of pipeline off the Blackwell Ranger. The bright blue flash of a welding arc on the storage tank. A tug pushing a barge up the channel, its horn low and long. Men in hard hats moving with purpose across 50 acres of steel and concrete and salt water. That facility is alive. This room is not. An HR rep stands near the door, holding a tablet against her chest like a shield. She won't look at me either. Austin finally glances up. Not at my face, somewhere around my collar. Marcus, I'll get right to it. Blackwell Petroleum is transitioning to a digital-first storage model. We're entering a strategic partnership with Global Energy Solutions in Dubai for all fleet storage and facility operations going forward. He says it like he's reading a term paper. Your position, Director of Storage Operations, is being eliminated as part of that transition. He pauses, waits for me to react. I don't. Frankly, that facility down there is bleeding money. It's outdated. The overhead alone is... He waves his hand like the number doesn't matter. We're moving to a cloud-based logistics model. Modern fleet operators don't maintain their own storage facilities. It's an obsolete operational footprint. The HR rep shifts her weight. The tablet shakes slightly in her hands. Your last day is today, Austin says. HR will walk you through the separation package. I look at him for a long moment. Then I look through the window at the storage facility. 500 feet of deep water access, built to handle vessels up to Suezmax class. I rebuilt the pump systems myself in 2019, replaced the pipeline manifolds in 2021, poured the concrete on the loading dock with my own crew in 2015. 17 ships in the Blackwell fleet depend on that facility for fuel storage, transfer operations, and DOT certification. I understand, I said. That was it. 2 words. Austin's eyebrows twitched, just barely. He expected an argument, maybe a speech, maybe begging. He got 2 words and a man picking up a brown envelope from the chair beside him. I stood, walked out. The HR rep stepped aside like I was carrying something hot. My name is Marcus Thompson. Most people call me Tank. I'm 47 years old. I've been at Blackwell Petroleum for 19 years. And before that, I spent 8 years in the Navy, submarine service, reactor maintenance on nuclear subs. I learned precision the hard way, 300 feet underwater where mistakes kill people. I started as a machinist's apprentice at 27. No college degree. No certifications except the ones I earned by doing the job better than anyone who had them. Everything I know about petroleum storage systems, DOT compliance, and pipeline inspection protocols, I learned with my hands or from a manual I read on my own time in a break room that smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. Blackwell Petroleum hired me at 27 because I was the only man who answered a 3 a.m. call about a cracked storage tank on the Blackwell Pioneer and had it sealed by dawn. I drove 50 minutes in the dark, set up under work lights on the dock, and ran a full penetration weld on a fracture that would have put that vessel in a shipyard for 4 weeks if anyone else had touched it. The foreman at the time called Howard Blackwell at 6 a.m. and said, "You need to hire this one before someone else does." Every promotion since came the same way. Machinist to shift lead to facility superintendent to assistant director to director of storage operations. I'm the only DOT compliant certifier in the company. 19 years. Not one facility failed a DOT inspection on my watch, not one. The storage facility was a ruin when I first saw it. Previous operator went belly up in the mid-2000s, couldn't keep up with maintenance, couldn't keep staff, couldn't keep clients. The facility sat empty for years. Rust on every surface, pump system shot. Storage tanks cracked. The cranes hadn't moved in so long, the cables had corroded in their tracks. I spent the better part of a decade making it the best petroleum storage facility on the Texas coast. full-service transfer bay with overhead gantry cranes and welding stations I designed myself, parts warehouse stocked with components for every vessel class we operate. Fuel depot with direct pipeline access so we never have to truck petroleum in, and it cost me. Last October, Jake, my son, 16 state wrestling champion at 152 pounds, had his championship match on a Friday night. I was supposed to be there, had the date circled on the calendar in the facility office. Then at 4 p.m., the Blackwell Endeavor limped in with a pump failure below deck. Emergency storage transfer. No choice. Linda recorded the match on her phone. My wife, RN at the VA hospital, married to a machinist who became something more and never stopped working like he was still trying to prove it. She held her phone up in the gym for 3 hours so I could see it later. Jake won by technical fall, pinned the kid from Houston in the third period. I watched that clip in the facility office at midnight, still wearing coveralls, petroleum residue on my boots, the smell of it sharp and chemical in my nose. I watched it 12 times. Linda texted, "He looked for you in the stands. I've missed more than I've been there, but the facility always needed me." That's what I told myself. Linda is the reason I'm not just a machinist with a good job. She's the reason I own the ground Austin Blackwell just fired me from. In 2012, a petroleum services company that had operated the storage facility before Blackwell leased it went through bankruptcy liquidation. The court put the whole parcel up for auction, 55 acres of waterfront, including the storage facility, transfer bay, warehouse, and fuel depot. I'd been watching. I knew what that land was worth. More important, I knew what it was worth to anyone who needed to operate on this stretch of coast. I called Bill Martinez. Bill is 56, practices petroleum and property law out of a 3-room office in Beaumont with air conditioning that barely works and stacks of case files on every flat surface. He's known me since he did the legal work on my first house, a 4-bedroom off Highway 69 that Linda and I bought the year Jake was born. Bill's the kind of lawyer who keeps a copy of everything in a fireproof filing cabinet and never raises his voice because he doesn't have to. Bill set up Lone Star Holdings LLC, registered in Texas. Managing member Marcus S. Thompson. I used my savings, $285,000, every dollar I'd put away since I was turning wrenches in the Navy, and Linda and I took a second mortgage on the house. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask if I was crazy. She looked at the auction listing, looked at me, and said, "How much?" That was it. How much? Total purchase price. $1.3 million for 55 acres of waterfront and a petroleum storage facility that cost $32 million to build. Court-supervised bankruptcy auction, arm's-length transaction recorded in Jefferson County land records. The smartest bet anyone on the Texas coast ever made. And nobody noticed because Marcus Thompson doesn't look like the kind of man who makes bets. Then Bill structured the ground lease. Lone Star Holdings LLC as lessor, Blackwell Petroleum as lessee. Fair market rate $115,000 a month. Blackwell's accounting department sent a check to my LLC every single month for 12 years. Never asked who was behind it. Why would they? It was a line item in the facility budget, just another vendor. But the lease had a clause, Section 7.2 of the ground lease agreement. Bill read it to me over the phone the night he drafted it, his voice flat and careful, the way it gets when he's writing something that matters. In the event the lessee terminates the employment of any individual who is a managing member or beneficial owner of the lessor entity, the lessor may terminate this lease upon 14 calendar days written notice, and all lease penalty provisions of Section 18.3 shall apply. I was quiet for a minute. Then I said, "Write it in." Bill said, "You'll probably never need it." "Write it in anyway." Blackwell Petroleum's then CFO signed that lease with full authority. It's been legally valid and enforceable for 12 years. Nobody in current management has ever read it. Why would they? The rent gets paid. The facility works. The man who runs it shows up every morning at 5:30 and leaves after dark. Nobody looks twice at the foundation when the building's still standing. The brown envelope I carried into that conference room, the one I picked up off the chair when Austin Blackwell told me my last day was today, was my copy of the lease agreement. I brought it because I already knew what was coming. 4 days before the firing, Eddie Rodriguez texted me at 11 p.m. Eddie is 44, facility foreman, been working under me for 14 years, started as a rigger, worked his way up. The kind of man who doesn't say much but remembers everything. He'd overheard Austin's assistant scheduling the meeting. The one with HR, the one in the conference room, the one that always means the same thing. His text was 2 sentences. Thursday, watch your back. I read it sitting on the edge of the bed. Linda was already asleep. Diesel, our German shepherd, 7 years old, lifted his head from the foot of the bed and watched me. I got up, walked to the closet, opened the fireproof safe. Inside, the original bill of sale from the 2012 auction stamped by the Jefferson County Clerk of Court, the ground lease, the LLC articles, and a photo of my father, a tugboat engineer who died of a heart attack on a workboat when I was 24. Never saw his son become anything. I took out the lease, set it in the brown envelope, put the envelope by the front door, then I went back to bed. Walking out of the building that afternoon, I crossed the facility one last time. The crew saw me. Hard hats turned. A welder killed his arc and lifted his hood. Nobody said anything. They knew. Eddie was standing by the gate, arms folded, jaw set so tight I could see the muscle working. He didn't speak. Neither did I. Some things don't need words between men who've worked side by side for 14 years. I stopped at the gate and looked back. The storage facility, 500 feet of deep water access, the cranes I'd rebuilt, the pump systems I'd designed, the fuel depot humming with the petroleum that kept 17 ships running. My facility, my land, my name on the deed filed in the county clerk's office for 12 years. I almost smiled. Then I got in my truck, a 2018 F250, white rust creeping along the wheel wells from 5 years of salt air, 156,000 miles on the odometer. Set the brown envelope on the passenger seat where the hard hat usually sits, and drove home. Austin Blackwell had just fired the man who owns the ground under his feet. He just didn't know it yet. The morning after, Austin Blackwell sent a company-wide email. I know because Eddie forwarded it to me without comment, just the screenshot, no words needed. Team, exciting changes ahead. Blackwell Petroleum is transitioning to a modern digital storage model through a strategic partnership with Global Energy Solutions in Dubai. This move will reduce operational overhead by 35% and position us as a globally competitive fleet operator. More details to follow as we build out our innovation roadmap. Austin Blackwell, CEO, he CC'd the board. By noon, he'd moved into my office. Eddie told me that too. Said Austin had maintenance pull down the framed facility photos I'd hung over 19 years. Crew portraits, vessel christenings, the photo of the Blackwell Pioneer after I welded her cracked tank in 2005, the one that got me promoted. The DOTE certification plaques, the crew rosters dating back to my first year as facility superintendent. 119 years of a man's working life taken off the walls and stacked in a cardboard box in the hallway. Austin replaced them with a whiteboard. Wrote digital transformation pipeline across the top in blue marker. Drew 3 columns, left them empty. That evening around 8, my phone rang. Eddie, you sitting down? I was at the kitchen table. Linda was cleaning up after dinner. Jake was in his room, music on low. Sarah, our 14-year-old, was at the counter doing algebra homework the way she does everything, precise and focused. Go ahead, I was in the corridor outside his office. Door was open, he was on the phone with one of the board members, laughing. Eddie paused. I could hear him breathing. He was angry in a way Eddie Rodriguez rarely gets angry, he said. The old man acted like I was taking his firstborn. It's a storage facility, not the Statue of Liberty. He's a machinist with a title. He'll be filing for unemployment by Christmas. I didn't say anything. Then he said, Tank, I'm telling you exactly what he said. No one's going to miss the rust and the grease. This is how you build a modern company. Silence on the line. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Jake's music. Thanks, Eddie. I hung up, set the phone face down on the table. Linda had stopped moving. She was standing at the counter with a dish towel in her hands, watching me the way she watches me when she already knows what happened and is waiting for me to catch up. He thinks I'm done, I said. Are you? I looked at the brown envelope sitting at the end of the table where I'd left it the night before. Bill Martinez's business card was tucked inside the front flap. I pulled it out and set it next to my phone. No. Austin Blackwell had it all figured out. A 47-year-old with no degree, no connections outside the Texas coast, a mortgage, and 2 kids in school. Where is a man like that going to go? In Austin's world, the world of Wharton MBAs and petroleum innovation fellowships and $400 sneakers, a man like me doesn't have options. A man like me takes the separation package, updates a resume nobody's going to read, and files for unemployment by Christmas. He had no idea that I owned the ground he was standing on. He had no idea that Texas Gulf Energy had been trying to recruit me for 4 years. And he had no idea that the separation package he'd offered me wasn't even worth the paper it was printed on compared to what was sitting in a fireproof safe in my bedroom closet. Thursday morning, 7 a.m., I drove out to the boat launch on Buffalo Bayou and parked at the water's edge. Engine off, windows cracked. The air was thick and warm, smelling like marsh grass and mud, and the faint petroleum tang that rides in off the Gulf when the wind's right. I poured coffee from the thermos. Dented lid, same one I've carried since my first year at Blackwell. The coffee was black, no sugar, still hot enough to burn. It tasted like every morning for 19 years. Except this morning was different. I called Bill Martinez. He picked up on the second ring. Bill's always at his desk by 7. Has been for 25 years. Bill, he fired me yesterday. Quiet on the line, not surprised quiet. Thinking quiet. Bill doesn't waste breath on reactions. Section 7.2. Section 7.2. I'll have the notice drafted and hand-delivered to their corporate office by noon. Certified return receipt. 14 days, tank. That's what they've got. One more thing. Call Jerry Walsh at Texas Gulf Energy. Tell him I'm ready to talk. That standing offer he's had on the table for 4 years. That's the one. I'll call him before lunch. I sat there for another 15 minutes after I hung up, finished the coffee, watched the water. A workboat was heading out toward the pass. Equipment secured, engine chugging that low diesel rhythm I've heard my whole life. 12 years. I'd owned that property for 12 years, paid every tax bill, maintained every structure, and never said a word to anyone at Blackwell Petroleum. Linda knew, Bill knew. That was it. 2 people for 12 years. By noon, a courier walked into the lobby of Blackwell Petroleum's corporate headquarters carrying a legal envelope from the law office of William R. Martinez, attorney at law, Beaumont, Texas. The receptionist signed for it. Certified return receipt. She looked at the envelope, didn't recognize the sender, and routed it to legal. It sat in Helen Ward's inbox for 3 hours and 17 minutes. At 3:17 p.m., Helen opened it. Helen Ward is Blackwell Petroleum's general counsel, 46 years old, sharp, thorough. She read contracts like other people read novels, looking for the story between the lines. She's the kind of lawyer who reads every word of every document because she learned early that the words people skip are the ones that kill them. She read the notice twice. Lease termination from Lone Star Holdings, LLC, citing Section 7.2 of the ground lease agreement effective in 14 calendar days. Attached. A certified copy of the LLC's Articles of Organization and the recorded deed from the Jefferson County Clerk of Court. Lone Star Holdings, LLC. She didn't recognize the name. She assumed it was a vendor dispute. Maybe the landlord had a billing issue. Maybe someone in accounting had missed a payment. Things like that happen. You send a letter, make a call, sort it out. She pulled the original lease file from record storage, a thick folder, dusty, the tab yellowed. She opened it and found the ground lease executed 12 years ago, signed by Blackwell Petroleum's then CFO, standard commercial terms $115,000 per month. She turned to the termination provisions, Section 7.2. She read it once, then again, then a third time slower, her finger tracing the words on the page. In the event, the lessee terminates the employment of any individual who is a managing member or beneficial owner of the lessor entity. The lessor may terminate this lease upon 14 calendar days written notice, and all lease penalty provisions of Section 18.3 shall apply. She went to her computer, Texas Secretary of State's website, entity search, typed Lone Star Holdings LLC. The filing came up in 4 seconds. Registered agent William R. Martinez, Beaumont, Texas. Managing member Marcus S. Thompson. Helen Ward did not move for 90 seconds. Her hand was still on the mouse, the screen glowed. The name sat there in plain black text on a white background. Marcus S. Thompson. She turned to Section 18.3, lease penalties, early termination damages, holdover provisions. She ran the numbers in her head once, then pulled up a calculator because she didn't trust her own arithmetic. The penalty provisions alone were north of $14 million. She picked up the phone and called Howard Blackwell's personal cell. Mr. Blackwell, we have a situation. The storage facility, the transfer bay, the warehouse, the fuel depot, we don't own any of it. We never did. It belongs to an LLC, and the LLC belongs to Marcus Thompson. I wasn't in the room, I didn't need to be. But I've known Helen Ward for 12 years, and I can tell you exactly how she sounded when she said it. Flat, controlled, the voice of a woman holding a live grenade and trying not to drop it. Howard's voice came through the speakerphone in the boardroom 50 minutes later. They'd called an emergency meeting. Austin was there, sitting at the head of the mahogany table in the suit he'd worn to fire me, the digital transformation pipeline whiteboard visible through the glass wall behind him. Helen stood at the far end with her laptop open and the lease file spread in front of her. "What did you say?" Howard's voice low, the voice of a man who built a company from a single workboat in 1983 and is hearing something he can't quite believe. Helen repeated it. All of it. The LLC, the deed, Section 7.2, the 14-day termination window. The penalty provisions under Section 18.3, Marcus Thompson owns the property. The lease has a termination clause triggered by his firing. We have 14 days to vacate. The penalty provisions alone are north of $14 million. Austin's face went white. Not red, white. The blood left it like water draining from a basin. He leaned forward, and for the first time since the meeting started, he looked genuinely worried instead of just annoyed. There has to be a way to challenge this. He's an employee. Employees don't own company infrastructure. Helen looked at him with the patience of someone explaining basic math to a child. He doesn't own company property, he owns his property. We're the tenant and we just lost the lease. Then we'll find another storage facility. The nearest deep water facility with DOT certification capacity is in Mobile. That's 180 miles. They have a 6-month waiting list. Our fleet inspection schedule alone requires weekly storage access. Without this facility, we can't certify a single vessel. The room went quiet. Not conference room quiet, graveyard quiet. Howard's voice came through the speaker, low and hard. "Austin, what have you done?" Austin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "Leave the room." Austin stood, straightened his jacket. His white sneakers squeaked on the conference room floor. He walked out without a word, and Helen Ward opened her laptop and started calculating exactly how much it was going to cost to fire Marcus Thompson. 5 days before Howard's Cadillac pulled into my driveway, I signed the exclusive service agreement with Texas Gulf Energy. Jerry Walsh flew to Beaumont personally. Didn't send a lawyer. Didn't send a VP. Came himself. Charter flight into the regional airport. Rental car to Bill's office on Main Street. Jerry's been running Texas Gulf for 9 years. He's 58, built like a man who spent his 30s on drilling rigs, which he did. We've known each other since a DOT compliance seminar in Houston in 2018. He'd been calling me every year since. Same pitch, same patience. "Whenever you're ready, Marcus, the offer's standing." Bill had the paperwork laid out on the conference table when Jerry arrived. The air conditioning wheezed overhead. The deal, $52 million over 6 years. Lone Star Holdings LLC grants Texas Gulf Energy exclusive use of the deep water storage facility, transfer bay, parts warehouse, and fuel depot. Marcus Thompson named VP of Fleet Operations for Texas Gulf, overseeing all maintenance, inspection, and DOT certification for their fleet. The agreement includes a non-service clause. Article 4, Paragraph 7. No Blackwell Petroleum vessels may use the facility for the duration of the contract. Jerry read the clause and looked at me. "You sure about that?" "I'm sure." He signed. I signed. Bill notarized. The whole thing took 35 minutes. Jerry shook my hand at the door. "I've been waiting 4 years for this call, Marcus. I know they have any idea what they lost. They're finding out." The Texas Gulf Pioneer, a 420-foot petroleum transport due for her annual tank inspection and pump service, was the first ship to enter the storage facility under the new agreement. My crew guided her in at dawn on a Tuesday, 12 days after Austin Blackwell fired me. Eddie Rodriguez ran the operation from the dock wall, calling positions over the radio, his voice as steady as it's been for 14 years. The ballast pumps hummed. The moorings took her weight. Welding arcs lit up the hull before the sun was fully above the tree line. My facility was running again, just not for Blackwell. Howard Blackwell's black Cadillac pulled into my driveway at 8:30 a.m. on a Friday morning. I saw it from the kitchen window where I was drinking coffee and watching Jake mow the backyard. The car was waxed, the kind of clean that means someone else washes it. Howard got out slowly, caucus, polo shirt, boat shoes. The uniform of a man who built a $2.1 billion company from a single workboat and still dressed like the deckhand he used to be. No entourage, no lawyer, just an old man walking across a gravel driveway toward a house he used to think was owned by an employee. I walked out to meet him. Behind me, Jake was making perfect parallel lines across the grass, the way I taught him. Precision in everything, even cutting grass. We met near the mailbox. The air smelled like cut grass and gasoline and the particular chemical bite of fertilizer Linda had put down the weekend before. Howard looked old, not the sturdy old he'd been at the company dinner 8 years ago when he called me the best hire I ever made in front of 200 people. This was different. His shoulders were lower. His hands hung loose at his sides. He didn't waste time. That's one thing I always respected about him. Marcus, I fired Austin this morning. He's out. Board voted unanimous at 7 a.m. He paused. His jaw worked once, like he was chewing on something that tasted wrong. I'm asking you man to man for a lease. Any terms, I'll pay whatever you want. I looked at him, the man who gave me my start, who shook my hand at every company dinner and meant it, who let his family cloud his judgment, because that's what family does. There was no anger in my face. I checked. There was no triumph either, just the settled feeling of a man standing on his own ground, in every sense of that word, who already made his decision 5 days ago in Bill Martinez's office. I would if I could, Mr. Blackwell, but the exclusive agreement with Texas Gulf says otherwise. Your grandson made sure I was free to sign it. Howard nodded slow, like a man absorbing a hit he knew was coming but hoped might miss. You were the best hire I ever made, Marcus. I know. He stood there another few seconds, looking past me at the house. Linda in the kitchen window. Jake on the mower. The life of a man who'd been more than just an employee, and was finally free to prove it. Then he turned and walked back to his car. He paused with his hand on the door, looked at the house one more time, got in, pulled the door shut. The Cadillac rolled out of the driveway and turned onto the county road. I watched until it disappeared past the tree line. Within 7 weeks of losing access to the storage facility, Blackwell Petroleum's fleet inspection schedule collapsed. Vessels couldn't be certified. DOT compliance lapsed on 6 ships simultaneously. Insurance carriers issued coverage gap notices. The nearest alternative storage facility was 180 miles away in Mobile with a 6-month waiting list. Austin's Dubai plan died the day someone in operations calculated that shipping petroleum across the Atlantic for routine maintenance would cost more per storage cycle than the annual lease on my property. Clients defected. Texas Gulf offered immediate storage capacity to anyone willing to move their contracts. 9 of Blackwell's top clients switched within 4 months. $1.4 billion in contracts gone. Blackwell Petroleum's board forced a sale. The company Howard Blackwell built from a single workboat in 1983, valued at $2.1 billion in 2023, sold for 28 cents on the dollar. The buyer was a private equity firm that stripped the fleet and sold the vessels individually. Austin Blackwell's LinkedIn went dark. Last anyone heard, he was back in Dallas interviewing at consulting firms. His Wharton MBA still opens doors. None of them are oil facilities. Howard sent me a handwritten letter, 2 sentences on Blackwell Petroleum letterhead. You earned every bit of it. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I put the letter in the safe next to the original bill of sale from the 2012 auction and the photo of my father. Lone Star Holdings LLC collected $97 million. Property income, lease penalties, the Texas Gulf Service Agreement. I paid off the house. The second mortgage Linda co-signed in 2012 heaved 12, cleared in full. I set up college funds for Jake and Sarah, put enough in them that they can go wherever they want and study whatever they want. Linda picked out a Tahoe. She said the old car still ran fine. I bought it anyway. She didn't argue. 12 years of patience earns a woman the right to a new truck without a debate. Friday evening, late October, Indian summer on the Texas coast. I'm sitting in the cab of my truck, parked at the top of the facility wall, windows down. The Texas Gulf Pioneer is in the bay below, freshly painted, her hull gleaming wet in the fading sun. My crew is wrapping up, tools clanking into boxes, the whine of a grinder shutting down, somebody laughing about something I can't hear from up here. Salt air, diesel. The faint chemical edge of fresh paint drying on steel. My phone buzzes on the seat. Jake, Dad, you coming to the match tonight? Front row, you said that last time. I'm already in the truck. I can hear him grin through the phone. He hangs up without saying goodbye. The way 16-year-olds do. I start the engine. The F-250 turns over the way it has for 156,000 miles, rough for a half second, then steady. Through the windshield, the Gulf stretches out flat and gold behind the storage facility. A workboat is heading in from the pass, riding low, equipment secured. My facility, my tanks, my name on the deed, right where it's been for 12 years. I pull out of the lot and head for the high school, windows down, salt air and cut grass, and the distant sound of a marching band warming up. Some men build empires on paper. I built mine on 55 acres of waterfront and a welding torch. Turns out paper burns. Steel doesn't. If you've ever been underestimated by someone half your age who thinks experience doesn't matter, you know exactly how this felt. Every skilled tradesman, every veteran, every man who's built something real with his hands has faced that moment when some kid in a suit decides your decades of knowledge are obsolete. The difference is preparation. While they're talking about innovation pipelines, you're reading the fine print. While they're planning your replacement, you're positioning for theirs. The men who survive aren't the loudest or the youngest. They're the ones who understand that real power isn't given in a title. It's earned through competence and secured through patience.